This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. Good morning, I'm John Trout. It's Tuesday, December 31st, 2024. Here's what's coming up on America in the Morning.
Chinese hackers successfully target the US Treasury Department, the latest in a string of serious cyber attacks against the US by China. I'm John Stolnis in Washington.
Those who worked closely with Jimmy Carter are remembering his efforts to help those in need around the world. I'm Sagar Meghani.
Donald Trump is making it known to Congress he supports the current House Speaker, Mike Johnson. I'm Jackie Quinn.
Billionaire Elon Musk catching headlines in Germany. I'm Clayton Neville.
On Wall Street, stocks limp into today's final trading day of 2024, but investors are sitting on still strong returns. I'm Jessica Ettinger.
If you're trying to get somewhere for New Year's Day, Tuesday might be a good time to be on the road. I'm Rita Foley.
All ahead on America in the Morning. Being called a major breach, the US Treasury Department says they've been victimized by Chinese hackers. From Washington, our John Stolnis has the latest.
In a statement, a Treasury spokesperson announced the hackers, believed to be associated with the Chinese government, remotely gained access to several workstations at the department and was able to access unclassified information. The department says the hackers accessed their workstations through a third-party service provider. In a letter to lawmakers, Treasury says the hack occurred at the beginning of the month, but they did not specify how many workstations had been compromised or divulge what specific documents the hacker may have obtained. The hack is being described as a major cybersecurity incident, and it comes just days after U.S. officials announced a massive Chinese cyber espionage campaign known as Salt Typhoon allowed officials in Beijing to access private text and phone conversations of an unknown number of Americans. As of now, 9 telecommunications companies are said to have been compromised. Sunday on Fox News, Congressman Mike Waltz, Donald Trump's pick for National Security Advisor, said China poses a serious threat to national security.
We have to stop trying to just play better and better defense. You know, back in the Cold War, when we saw the Soviets building up their missiles, we just didn't build better and better defenses. We built an offensive capability that they respected, that they knew could be unleashed on them, and therefore you change behavior.
John Stolnis, Washington.
Tributes are pouring in throughout the nation and around the world for former President Jimmy Carter, who passed away at the age of 100. Washington correspondent Sagar Meghani reports those who worked closely with Carter over the years are remembering his devotion to improving the lives of the world's poorest people.
America and the world, in my view, lost a remarkable leader. He was a statesman and humanitarian. I always would be proud to say that he used to kid me about it, that I was the first national figure to endorse him in 1976 when he ran for president. There was an overwhelming reason for it, his character. What I find extraordinary about Jimmy Carter, though, is that millions of people all around the world, all over the world, feel they lost a friend as well.
Those who worked closely with Jimmy Carter at his Carter Center are remembering his efforts to help those in need around the world.
But he also had such an amazing life, so I tend to focus more on celebrating an extraordinary life and a life well lived. And I think President Carter was so open about his faith. I like to think of him now as very much at peace and reunited with his beloved Rosalind, who were after their 77 years of marriage.
Senior advisor Linda Newman says the ex-president focused on health and peace.
And he understood that you need both for society to thrive.
Frank Richards, who recently retired from the center, points to Carter's decades-long push to wipe out guinea worm, an ancient parasite that afflicted an estimated 3.5 million people in 1986.
Now we're talking about 14 people in the entire world, 14 persons.
Asked how Carter attacked guinea worm and other global issues?
Often by picking up the phone and calling either a Ministry of Health or a president to smooth the way.
For both Richards and Newman, Carter's passing, while expected, was still shocking.
I shed some tears last night.
It wasn't unexpected, but I think from everybody I've spoken to, we're all still a little bit in shock. We truly believed he was going to live forever.
I'm Sagar Meghani.
The White House says the official state funeral in Washington, D.C. for former President Jimmy Carter will be held January 9th, which President Biden proclaimed as a national day of mourning. Biden will deliver a eulogy at Carter's funeral service held at the Washington National Cathedral. Carter's motorcade will travel through Plains, Georgia, January 4th before arriving at the Carter Presidential Center in Atlanta, where he will lie in repose. After Carter's funeral in Washington, his remains will return to Georgia for a private funeral service in his hometown of Plains before a private interment at Carter's home. President Biden has ordered U.S. flags to be flown at half-staff for 30 days. The top stories of the day are sponsored by Sleep Number. And now, it's the lowest price of the season on the top-selling i8 Smart Bed. Your best savings plus special financing. Limited time. See store or sleepnumber.com for details. When we return on America in the Morning, support wanes for the Speaker of the House after these messages. This is America in the Morning. Snow and rain are forecast this New Year's Eve. On Who'll See That, here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
The latest storm to cross the U.S. this morning is centered over Illinois, and it will continue eastward quickly in what is generally a fast-moving weather pattern. Rain will continue to break out eastward through the southern Great Lakes into the Ohio Valley. There'll be some snow also mixing in on the northern side of the storm from Iowa into Wisconsin, northern Illinois, into Indiana and southern Michigan. Rain will reach western New York, Pennsylvania, and the middle Atlantic this afternoon, and a few showers will even cross the Carolinas into northern Georgia on the southern side of the system. As this storm continues eastward into New Year's evening festivities, there will be more snow breaking out into northern Michigan, with rain expanding into a good part of the Northeast and New England, and there could even be a few rumbles of thunder along the way. Meanwhile, in the Northwest, after a break, another system will be moving on shore late in the day, though this system will not be nearly as potent as recent events. Rain will develop late in the afternoon along the Washington and Oregon coasts, with snow forming inland into the new year. The rest of the West will be largely dry today, with some amount of sunshine and temperatures near or slightly above the historical average. We'll have highs in the 30s across Washington, southward to Utah, and warming to the 70s in southern Arizona. Outside of the two systems, there will be a few snow showers across the northern Rockies moving into the northern plains today and tonight, with Arctic air plunging into the northern plains states. That's the weather across America. Columbus, Ohio will have plenty of clouds today with periods of rain and a mild high of 50. Williston, North Dakota will have plenty of clouds as well and a much colder afternoon with a high of just 15. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
Remember, you can follow us wherever you get your podcasts: Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. President-elect Donald Trump has endorsed the current Speaker of the House. However, not every member of the GOP is on board. As correspondent Jackie Quinn reports, at least one Republican Congresswoman, Indiana's Victoria Spartz, tells Fox News that she isn't alone in her disapproval of Mike Johnson.
There are a lot of other people are interested, but I think they don't want at this point to go to Speaker Johnson. But right now, no one wants to step up and say, well, yeah, Mike hasn't been doing that great.
So I think that's notable if you're telling us you know of other individuals in Congress who would want to put themselves up for Speaker?
Yes, they are. Of course. There's a lot of people probably, and I think that's a debatable issue we have. And I hope we have it before January 6th. This is unfortunate that Speaker Johnson is not willing to have that deliberation with the members that actually opposing him right now. And it's not just me, there's much more members.
Sure.
A lot of people just really afraid to say that.
President-elect Donald Trump posted on social media that Louisiana Congressman Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, is a hardworking religious man and will, quote, do the right thing, adding, we will continue to win. Johnson's leadership seemed in jeopardy earlier this month after a fight to fund the government and head off a shutdown. Johnson has been a loyal Trump supporter. Last month, he said,
we believe we could be the most consequential Congress of the modern era, and he the most consequential president, because we quite literally have to fix almost every metric of public policy.
Trump has been quiet about Johnson's fate. Some Republicans have signaled they'll try to vote the House Speaker out. I'm Jackie Quinn.
Germany is accusing Elon Musk of trying to interfere in its national elections. With more on the story, here's our Clayton Neville.
German government spokesperson Christiane Hoffmann told reporters this week that it is indeed the case that Elon Musk is trying to influence the federal election in Germany. That election is set for late February. Now, the comments come after Musk seemingly declared his support for the far-right Alternative for Germany party, known as AfD. Hoffmann said freedom of expression also includes the greatest nonsense and insisted that German voters will decide German elections at the ballot box. Musk recently called German Chancellor Olaf Scholz a, quote, fool. Just last week, Musk posted on his social media platform X, quote, only the AfD can save Germany. I'm Clayton Neville.
Business news is next, including Wasserman's investor warning and a report on home sales. That and more next. America in the Morning, back after these messages. This is America in the Morning. The Business Report is brought to you by Fisher Investments. Fisher Investments has a team of specialists in investing, financial planning, estate planning, and more. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. Closing the chapter on another year on Wall Street, here's CNBC's Jessica Ettinger.
Wall Street opens this morning for the final trading day of the year after a losing day for stocks yesterday, with the Dow tanking 400 points. Shares of Nike and Boeing led the way down, Boeing facing a special South Korean government investigation after a crash there over the weekend. Today, New Year's Eve day, is a full trading day on Wall Street for stocks. The markets will then be closed tomorrow for the New Year's Day holiday and back at it on Thursday morning. While some complain there's no Santa Claus rally, others say Santa's already delivered a massive rally for 2 straight years.
Well, we've had quite a rally already in 2024, and this has been a very strong quarter. I mean, let's look at the numbers. 26% up in 2023. The market's up about 25% in 2024. I call that a lot of rally, plenty of gifts from Santa Claus.
Aureus Asset Management's Carrie Firestone on CNBC, and experts tell CNBC investors should be ready for stocks to fall more and reset.
We're cautious. I mean, you've made money. We're not saying get out of them. We're saying lower your exposure to some of it. I think you're going to get a pullback in this market because it's priced for perfection. We've all seen it. You saw just what happened when the Fed changed their mind a little bit. You saw a 3.2% pullback in the NASDAQ in just one day. We don't see what you're seeing right now as a major pullback. We're talking about a 10% pullback. Should be coming. When, I can't tell you. And so all we're saying is redeploy some of your capital to safer dividend-growing stocks, and we think you'll be rewarded.
Miramar's Max Wasserman on CNBC. Would-be homebuyers tired of waiting for mortgage interest rates to fall. And pending home sales were up.
Pending home sales in November were up 6.9% from November last year. That is slightly better than expectations and the 4th straight month of gains. Remember, this count is based on signed contracts, so that's people out shopping in November when the average rate on the 30-year fix spent much of the month over 7%. NAR's chief economist Laura Stewart said in the release, consumers appeared to have recalibrated expectations regarding mortgage rates and are taking advantage of more available inventory.
CNBC's Diana Olick. Treasury workstations hacked by China, according to a Treasury Department letter sent to Congress, seen by a French news agency. The letter says China was able to hack a third-party software provider that the government uses. The U.S. city where home prices climbed the most in 2024 is Anaheim, California. Prices were up more than 12% in 1 year. On today's watch list, it's the final trading day of the year. We get the latest on home prices with the S&P Case-Shiller Home Price Index. New Year's Eve celebrations set for towns and cities across the globe.
Yeah, and we'll have a report next on what holiday travelers are facing on the roads. CNBC's Jessica Ettinger with Tuesday Business. America in the Morning, back after these messages. Thanks for listening. You're with America in the Morning. An appeals court upholds a $5 million award in a New York sexual abuse case verdict against Donald Trump. Following the case, correspondent Julie Walker.
The Second U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals upholds a jury's finding in a civil case that Donald Trump sexually abused columnist E. Jean Carroll in a Manhattan department store dressing room back in 1996 and must pay her the $5 million award that the jury granted for defamation and sex abuse last year. In January, a second jury awarded Carroll an additional $83.3 million in damages for comments Trump had made about her while he was first president, finding they were defamatory. Trump has denied the attack ever happened. A Trump spokesman says they will continue to appeal. Julie Walker, New York.
If you plan on traveling today, correspondent Rita Foley reports on what holiday travelers face on the roadways.
INRIX, the data provider, says not a lot of traffic impact is expected or on New Year's Day itself. But if you're returning on Thursday, January 2nd, the best time to travel by car is before 3 p.m. The worst time, between 4 and 8 p.m. Gas is $3.02 a gallon today, says the AAA. That's cheaper than a year ago when it was almost $3.12 a gallon. Nearly 90% of holiday travelers are driving to their destinations this year, but AAA expects almost 8 million passengers to travel by air. I'm Rita Foley.
America in the Morning for Tuesday, December 31st, 2024 is produced by Jeff McKay, senior producer Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One. This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm John Trout. Coming up this half hour.
Jimmy Carter's tiny Georgia hometown is remembering him days before he's buried there. I'm Sagar Meghani.
Legal battles and elections dominate the headlines in 2024 politics. I'm Clayton Neville.
New York City prepares as 1 million people will arrive to celebrate the new year.
The crew of a tugboat was quickly rescued when their vessel sank into the Mississippi River.
The waterway was closed.
I'm Haya Panjwani.
Border arrests have changed little in December. Ed Donahue, Washington.
I'm tech correspondent Chuck Palm, and I'll have the top 5 tech fails for 2024.
Ring in the new year with your favorite movie characters. I'm Kevin Carr.
That and more after these messages. This is America in the Morning. Revelers, take note of the forecast. Here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
The main storm system in the U.S. today is starting out over Illinois and will continue eastward quickly. Rain will continue to break out eastward this morning through the southern Great Lakes into the Ohio Valley, and there will be some snow mixing in on the northern side of the storm from Iowa into Wisconsin, as including northern Illinois and northern Indiana and southern Michigan. Rain will reach into western New York and Pennsylvania and the Middle Atlantic this afternoon, and we'll even have a few showers farther south on the southern side of the system, crossing the Carolinas into northern Georgia. As the system continues eastward into the New Year's evening festivities, more snow will break out into northern Michigan, and rain will be expanding into a good part of the Northeast into New England, and there could even be a few rumbles of thunder along the way. And in the Northwest, we have another system moving onshore late in the day, though this system will not be nearly as potent as the storms from last week. Rain will develop late in the day along the Washington and Oregon coasts, and then continue to form inland with snow developing, especially over the mountains as we head into the new year. The rest of the West is going to be largely dry with some amount of sunshine. We'll have temperatures near or slightly above the historical average, with highs in the 30s in Washington southward to Utah and warming to the 70s in southern Arizona. Outside of these two systems, there'll be a few snow showers across the northern Rockies, moving into the northern plains today and tonight, with Arctic air plunging into the northern plains states. And the central and southern plains will be dry and much cooler today, with some amount of sunshine. Temperatures will be near or even a little bit below the historical average. Largely dry through a good portion of the southeast into southern Georgia, but it will be milder here with highs in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
Remember, you can follow us wherever you get your podcasts: Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. Jimmy Carter put Plains, Georgia on the map when he ran for the nation's highest office in the land, and his hometown is remembering him after the former president passed away at the age of 100. Here's correspondent Sagar Meghani.
I know that many of us have spoke with him over the years about what he wanted his influence to be in Plains, and it was just as another neighbor. It's a great loss for our world. He's one of the greatest men of peace, but also one of the greatest friends to the world.
He was a tremendous example of public service. He was the kind of example that all of us who are in public service seek to, that is to serve others. You make your life by what you make your living by what you get, you make your life by what you give. And he gave so much to so many for so long.
We've been preparing for this for so long, but I'm still a little stunned, I think, that it's really happened. And I'm sad for the family members who are all gathered here in Plains.
Jimmy Carter's tiny Georgia hometown is remembering him days before he's buried there. In Plains, Leanne Smith remembers one Thanksgiving at the home where Aunt Rosalind Carter grew up, and Jimmy spoke up.
I'm running for president, and my dad said, president of what? And he said, the United States. And my dad said, oh, yeah, right. And we just all laughed and went on about eating.
A month later, as a middle schooler, Smith was in Florida as part of Carter's Peanut Brigade.
And I was asking people to vote for my uncle for president of the United States.
For Andrea Walker, it was a call one day from her famous neighbor while her house was being built.
He said, they're not putting your roof on right. They're not listening to me, and it needs fixed or it's going to leak.
So Walker went home where Carter was waiting and talked to the foreman.
You may not know who this man is because you're very, very young. I don't care if he tells you to paint the house purple. Just do whatever he says.
At the Plains Trading Post, owner Philip Curlin says the spirit of Jimmy and Rosalind will always be in their beloved town.
I mean, in every little thing that goes on here, they'll be here because we're all going to try and be a little kinder and step up our game and maybe do a little more for other people.
I'm Sagar Meghani.
More on arrangements now. Carter's motorcade will travel through Plains, Georgia on January 4th before arriving at the Carter Presidential Center in Atlanta, where he will lie in repose. The White House says the official state funeral in Washington, D.C. will be held on January 9th, which President Biden proclaimed as a national day of mourning. Biden is expected to deliver a eulogy at Carter's funeral service held at the National Cathedral in Washington. After his Washington, D.C. memorial, Carter's remains will return to Georgia for a private funeral service in his hometown before a private interment at Carter's home. President Biden ordered U.S. flags to be flown at half-staff for 30 days at federal buildings, military posts, naval stations, and on all naval vessels. America in the Morning continues. As we turn the page on another year, correspondent Clayton Neville takes a look at the presidential election and a slew of legal battles in 2024.
While President Trump's legal battles dominated the headlines this year, a drug and gun conviction against President Biden's son Hunter stole the news too. Hunter eventually was pardoned by his dad. Now, the U.S. High Court made news for an array of decisions in 2024, but perhaps none more notable than a landmark Supreme Court ruling that said presidents, including Donald Trump, have immunity from prosecution when carrying out official acts. This with immediate impacts for Trump's pending legal cases, with several of them dropped or put on hold. Earlier in the year, Trump was found guilty on all 34 felony counts in a hush money trial involving porn star Stormy Daniels. That after Trump was ordered to pay $83 million for defaming E. Jean Carroll. Just this week, an appeals court rejected Trump's attempt to overturn that verdict. Carroll didn't think Trump had a chance to be elected president again when she spoke with Fortune.
I think he's going to lose the election. I think he's going to lose. I'm not worried.
The race for the presidency took a turn over the summer when Trump was shot in the ear and one person killed at a rally in Pennsylvania.
If you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened.
It wasn't long after that Trump officially became the Republican nominee. A ruckus GOP convention with Hulk Hogan stealing the show.
And they tried to kill the next president of the United States. Enough was enough. And I said, let Trumpomania run wild, brother.
Trump's campaign also caught a boost from President Biden's debate performance, where he stumbled.
Eligible for what I've been able to do with the with the COVID, with dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if
Biden dropped out and Vice President Kamala Harris took over and took aim at Trump.
He is only focused on himself.
Trump, who police say was the subject of a second assassination attempt on a Florida golf course, celebrated an election win and continues to build his administration today. Capitol Hill also impacted by the voters. Republicans will control both chambers. And longtime Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell stepping away from his leadership role.
I'm not going anywhere anytime soon. However, I'll complete my job my colleagues have given me.
With an election year coming to an end, it was another former president making headlines with his passing at the age of 100. President Biden remembered the life of President Jimmy Carter this week.
When I endorsed him for president, I told him why I was endorsing him, and that it was not only his policies, but his character, his decency, the honor he communicates to everyone.
A new chapter in Washington begins next month. In fact, in just a few weeks, when President-elect Donald Trump is inaugurated for a second time. I'm Clayton Neville.
The biggest tech fails of 2024. When America in the Morning continues after these messages. This is America in the Morning. Welcome back. Police in New York City say there are no credible threats for New Year's Eve in Times Square, but still security will be tight as ever. Correspondent Julie Walker reports.
They see the main stage of the ball actually dropping. What they don't realize is how much goes on behind the scene to ensure that people are safe.
Bomb-sniffing dogs, drones, dump trucks blocking streets, and cops on every corner. That's just some of the NYPD security for New Year's Eve in Times Square.
At this time, there are no specific credible threats.
However, Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch says ever since last year's Hamas attack in Israel, they've been operating in a heightened threat environment.
The public can expect to see a tremendous amount of police resources deployed throughout the area and across the city.
Mayor Eric Adams says it's all about making sure everyone has a safe experience.
There'll be officers in uniform and out of uniform, but there are many officers that have plainclothes assignments to give the element of surprise.
Thousands are expected to pack the small area of Times Square surrounding the ball drop, even more in the buildings and blocks surrounding it. Julie Walker, New York.
Rescuers were able to pull 5 people from a tugboat as it sank in the Mississippi River. Correspondent Haya Panjwani reports.
The towing vessel sank, and 5 people went into the water. 5 people, those were recovered almost immediately by another passing vessel. It was a towboat, Mary Moran.
Melanie Burnham with the U.S. Coast Guard says they're looking into the incident.
The waterway was closed while we assessed the situation to understand where the vessel was at and what the impacts potentially were.
The tugboat sank in a stretch of river 90 feet deep.
We still do have the vessel in the water. We are still doing assessments and doing our investigation.
They added that there will be an assessment of possible environmental impacts of the accident that was west of New Orleans.
Could have been a significantly worse situation where we could have had a loss of life.
I'm Haya Panjwani.
It's been the job of U.S. Border Security and other agencies to stem the tide of drug trafficking, human trafficking, extortion, and more at our southern border. And now there's a new FBI report about illegal crossings. Here's correspondent Ed Donahue with a look.
A senior Customs and Border Protection official tells the AP the number of arrests is hovering near the lowest level since July of 2020. It also indicates an anticipated surge ahead of Donald Trump's presidential inauguration in 3 weeks hasn't happened. Arrests fell by about half from the all-time high of 250,000 in December of 2023 after Mexican officials increased enforcement within their own borders, and by about half again after President Biden introduced severe asylum limits. For the second straight month, those allowed to enter the country through official border crossings are expected to exceed arrests for illegal crossings. Ed Donahue, Washington.
While a number of tech stocks did well in 2024, there were some busts. With what's become his annual tradition, here's Chuck Palm with the top 5 tech fails of the year.
It's the last day of 2024, so here's our top 5 tech fails for the year. Number 5, Microsoft's recall tool. The recall feature, set aside for Windows PCs, took a snapshot of your activity so you could easily return to a later date. But concerns about exposing user data or passwords made this a big flop in 2024. Number 4, the National Public Data Loss. The inappropriately named background checking company National Public Data loses as many as 272 million social security numbers to a hacker. Number 3, Intel's falling from grace. PC chip manufacturer Intel replaced their CEO as several of their chips failed to deliver in 2024. Number 2, the CrowdStrike update. The software push update that crippled 8.5 million PCs, including those in charge of airline traffic control. And the number 1 tech fail, the Rabbit R1 AI personal assistant. Overpriced, overhyped, and underperformed, the Rabbit R1 is our pick for the top fail of 2024. I'm Chuck Palm.
With a look at sports, here's Robert Workman.
NFL Week 17 wrapped up Monday night as the Lions rallied past the 49ers 40-34 for their 14th win of the season. Detroit didn't hold the lead until the closing seconds of the third quarter when Jared Goff hit Amon-Ra St. Brown with the last of his 3 touchdown passes.
I feel like we're all playing at an elevated level right now on offense. I think the last handful of weeks, even the Buffalo game we lost, we were scoring a ton of points, and we've been playing well on offense for quite some time, and I feel like I'm just part of that.
The win sets up next week's primetime season finale for the Lions at home against the Vikings. The winner will be the top seed in the NFC playoffs and get a first-round bye. The loser will be the 5 seed and face a road game a week later. By the way, a tie would go to the Lions as well. College football, 1 bowl game on Monday in Nashville, the Music City Bowl. Number 19 Missouri rallied past Iowa 27-24. 5 bowl games today, culminating with the first of the quarterfinal games for the National Championship. Number 3 Boise State and number 6 Penn State at the Fiesta Bowl in Arizona. The other playoff quarterfinals will be on New Year's Day. NBA, the Cavaliers whipped the Warriors 113-95 for their 7th straight win. Cleveland now 28-4. That's the best record in the association. Knicks whacked the Wizards for their 8th consecutive victory. Clippers sank the Pelicans. That's 10 straight losses for New Orleans. Nuggets juked past the Jazz, 36 points and a triple-double for Nikola Jokic. Russell Westbrook had a perfect triple-double for Denver, hitting all of his shots from the floor and the free throw line, and didn't make a turnover. He's just the second NBA player ever to do that after Domantas Sabonis did it for the Kings way back in November. That's Tuesday Sports.
Robert Workman on sports. Forget the crowds, an alternative to New Year's celebrations when America in the Morning continues after these messages. This is America in the Morning. Welcome back. A judge in Argentina has confirmed charges against 5 people in connection with the October death of former One Direction singer Liam Payne. More on the story from correspondent Margie Zaraletta.
A judicial officer tells the Associated Press the 5 people charged are an employee at the Buenos Aires hotel where Liam Payne fell off a balcony, 2 hotel managers, a restaurant waiter, and a businessman who was with Payne. The officer says the hotel employee and the waiter have been charged with supplying drugs and ordered to report to the judge for pretrial detention. The officer says the other 3 were charged with manslaughter. Prosecutors had filed initial charges against 3 people in November but did not reveal details. Prosecutors say toxicology tests showed that Payne had alcohol, cocaine, and a prescribed antidepressant in his system. I'm Archie Zaraletta.
Neighborhood getting crowded? Longer lines at the supermarket? Correspondent Jackie Quinn reports on the world's population, an increase in 2024.
Census Bureau estimates find the world population by New Year's Day will be 8.09 billion people. That's an increase of 71 million people this year alone. In the U.S., there were 2.6 million more people, bringing the population this week to 341 million. The Census Bureau says this coming year in America, the combination of a birth every 9 seconds, a death every 9.4 seconds, and population growth from migration will result in one new person being added every 21 seconds. I'm Jackie Quinn.
Speaking of crowds, if you don't want to stand shoulder to shoulder with New Year's Eve revelers, our Kevin Carr reports that there are some movies you can start at a particular time to ring in the new year with the characters at midnight.
Rather than watching the ball drop on live TV, start some famous films ahead of the stroke of midnight so you can ring in the new year with classic characters. Press play on When Harry Met Sally at 10:30 and 28 seconds to count down and watch the title characters fall in love.
I came here tonight because when you realize you want to spend the rest of your life with somebody, you want the rest of your life to start as soon as possible.
Or start Forrest Gump at 10:30 and 57 seconds to ring in the new year with Lieutenant Dan. Or press play on Ocean's 11 at 10:30 and 49 seconds to join the New Year's heist with the Rat Pack.
Douse those lights. Good. Now sing loud and clear. Should all acquaintance.
For a less traditional take, let Tony Stark wish you a Happy New Year by starting Iron Man 3 at 11:55 and 50 seconds.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Happy New Year. I'll see you in the morning. Good night.
Or join the Corleone family by starting The Godfather Part 2 at 10:17 and 21 seconds.
I know it was you, Fredo. You broke my heart. You broke my heart.
Let's just hope you have a better year than Fredo does. Finally, board the Poseidon Adventure at 11:35 and 19 seconds for a midnight splash.
I'm Gatsby.
And while it's not New Year's in the film, if you start Baz Luhrmann's The Great Gatsby at 11:29 and 57 seconds, Jay Gatsby himself will raise his glass for 2025. I'm Kevin Carr.
America in the Morning for Tuesday, December 31st, 2024 is produced by Jeff McKay, senior producer Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One.